Hello and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, today we're going to be demystifying cryptocurrency. We've had a number of roundtables on that. In fact, I've called some of my familiar faces and friends to explain it to us. But also, what is the latest on crypto? Why is India hesitating to, legitimize it as a digital currency? What is crypto? Is it an asset, commodity, or a currency? And so on and so forth. Is there a future for crypto? Do you actually encourage people to invest in crypto? Which is the best crypto to invest in? So these are some of the questions that my panel is said they promised me they will answer today. So joining me on the panel is we have Professor Jayajit Bhattacharya. He's an entrepreneur and a digital policy expert. We have Karthik Iyer. He's the CEO of Blockchain Monk, and he's also the ambassador for the P2P Foundation, which published the first blockchain client. We have Devika Mittal. She runs a crypto listings for one of the largest licensed crypto exchanges, which is part of the OKX conglomerate. Sorry for that one. But welcome, Devika, your first roundtable. And of course, Karthik and Professor Jayajit are there. But Karthik, what for you is the biggest future for crypto and the challenges for it in India?
So I'm reminded of the Bhagavad Gita. So in chapter 2, which is, so we have 18 chapters in the Gita, and the second chapter is Sankhya Yoga. And Krishna tells Arjuna, he says, seek refuge in divine knowledge and insight, Arjuna, and discard reward-seeking actions. So he tells Arjuna, just look at, knowledge is important. Sankhya Yoga is about knowledge. And he says knowledge is important. Just learn, observe, put your mind in the divine. And in Karma Yoga, Krishna basically takes his, multi-arm form, and he says, these are your relatives, but you have to do your karma, and this is why you're here. And so Arjuna gets confused, and he says, if you consider knowledge superior, why are you forcing me to wage this terrible war? And I think, in many ways, India's been like chapter 2. It has been observing what the world has been doing. It has been studying what Singapore has been doing. It's been studying what Dubai has been doing. UAE has been doing. Has been looking at regulations in the US. And I think it is very smart, that our regulators, this brilliant people, both the RBI and the Ministry of Finance. I think they've done a phenomenal job of, coming up with these sandboxes where they have studied this thing, like in chapter 2, in the Sankhya Yoga. They have taken a lot of knowledge through some of these sandboxes where they've brought in startups, crypto startups.
What are the challenges, if I can just cut you, hurry up a bit?
Yeah, so the big challenge right now is, the things like FEMA, FERA, money laundering. It's just very difficult to go and track some of these guys. Out of, 90% of these projects are scams. Only 10% of the projects are real. For every Cardano, for every Ethereum, which is like a legit project, there are 100 guys who are scammers who actually do not want to build anything. It's a very quick way to, buy a house in Dubai, buy a Ferrari. So it's, there is no Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. There's no framework for a lot of these people. And they all want to come to India and they want to scam the people, and they want to take the money away from unassuming middle class. And that is the biggest problem right now, which we need to address.
Note of caution from Karthik, but Jayajit, how do you look at it? The biggest challenges for India. Let's take India's story first.
I'll amplify what Karthik said. So to begin with, there seems to be a major disconnect between the value of crypto and its usability in India. If you are treating crypto as a mechanism for exchanging value, why not use UPI? It's much more cheaper. It does not have, it's a very, very minimalistic impact on the environment. It consumes very little electricity, and it does the job perfectly and instantaneously, which is what the crypto does not do. The exchange does not happen instantaneously. And therefore, the crypto may have some other value. Now, crypto is one of the applications of blockchain, right? As everybody knows. And there are other applications of blockchain which are worthwhile. There are also cryptos which are backed by certain assets, and therefore whatever is the value of that asset, that becomes the value of that crypto. Now, if there are cryptos which are not backed by assets, and India does not have any significant cryptos out there, that means every crypto that an Indian is buying is actually impacting our foreign exchange outflow. Do we really need to do that? As we saw in the downturn that happened, and it has been happening regularly. In 2018, when the first downturn happened in crypto, I was remarking that the total value that went down was equal or actually more than the total GDP of Pakistan. This time when the value went down, it was almost the same size as the GDP of India. So every time crypto is going down, the value by which it's going down and the negative economic impact it's happening is becoming bigger and bigger. Till one day it will not be sustainable, which is the exactly what happens in the Ponzi scheme. Now, which is why I become quite unpopular, because I keep calling it a Ponzi scheme, following what RBI governor has also been saying, and I'm completely in sync with what he's saying, because a lot of people have actually synced in their complete lifetime savings into crypto, assuming it's some kind of a magic which will give them enormous amount of return. Now, return will come in if either the underlying asset adds on to a value, or somebody who's holding on to the asset adds on to the value. Now, if you sell me a crypto and I sell it to Karthik, what is the value add I'm doing? Why should I be getting more out of it? There is no asset in the back end which is becoming more valuable. Neither you are adding any value, nor am I adding any value. Why should the value be going up? And that is where is a problem in India. Along with it, everything else that Karthik was talking about, which is money laundering issues, I can simply take the crypto in a pen drive and walk away. If it was Nirav Modi, which I had mentioned in your show earlier also, he could have simply put in that entire money in a pen drive, got into a flight and vanished in thin air. Those are very difficult for us to manage. Again and again, the counter argument that has been put in that, look, because crypto is in a blockchain, you can actually go in and check who is owning what. Keep in mind that India doesn't have that ability. You can do that in US, where US kind of controls the internet. Why kind of? For a long time, under a contract from the Department of Commerce, the internet was being run. And we don't have that kind of capability. So if something like the Colonial Pipeline issue happened in India, where a huge amount of ransom was taken away, US was able to recover. We will not be able to recover. And therefore, from an Indian perspective, there is no the utility value of crypto. Neither is any solution to all the negativity and the cons of a crypto that comes along with that entire solution.
So, Devika, having heard Jayajit, it falls to you to defend why should one invest in crypto. And you're based in the US, right?
I am based in the US. I'm in New York right now. So,
then,
I think, Jayajit, I think great points. And I think, they're all absolutely legitimate points. And I'm definitely not a crypto maxi or a Bitcoin maxi in any ways. But, I think there are some arguments that we are not thinking about or discussing right now when we think about the downsides of crypto or the, negative impacts that you discussed. So, I want to say, of course, like a lot of crypto, like Karthik also said, are scams. And there is issues around, the average person who doesn't understand which crypto to invest in, might put their money in, and it totally gets wiped out. I will say that the thing is, when we're looking at the value of crypto getting wiped out in these crypto winters or, the bear market, we're also not looking at the value that's created in a bull market as well. Traditionally, you could have said that the bull market runs, they were higher returns than the S&P or, than the, regular stock market. And so people are trying to make, 4x, 5x returns they normally would. Now, actually, you're seeing that the crypto market overall is actually getting very highly correlated with the S&P 500, at least in the US. So, I will say that, when the value is getting wiped out in crypto, it's also getting wiped out in the equity market. And when the value is being created in the equity market, it's also being created in crypto. So that's the other side. In terms of thinking about safety, for example, and, why would we use crypto over UPI? I think there's a question of where is the technology now versus where can the technology be in the future? And what are the use cases it's solving for right now or in the future that current technology doesn't solve for? So, you bring up UPI, which is a great example because it is faster right now. It is cheaper. It's probably a little bit more secure than most crypto technologies out there. But, if we think about, say, remittances, right? India is one of the largest remittance populations in the world. We have, I'm sitting in New York right now, we have Indians all over the world who are trying to send money back to India. It's very hard to do right now with UPI or PayPal or, with my bank account. And there is technology, right? And there are projects that are targeting specifically, for example, remittances. And for like 5 cents, I can send back money to my family, for example, if I were doing that. And I think that's a huge use case that, I would really look at. And it's not necessarily the current use case of I want to send money to my friends in India, right, through UPI. But it's how am I how am I looking at the inefficiencies of the financial global system, and how am I fixing those through something like crypto, which current national systems like UPI don't do.
Okay. So Karthik, Devika handled some of questions raised by Jayjeet, but I'm sure you want to handle a couple also. Karthik, we can't hear you.
Absolutely. So, Jayjeet was very bright in his comments. I mean, he's seen this industry for quite some time, and I've been there since the beginning. And so, very, very important points that Jayjeet made, and I think the RBI governor, in its great wisdom, also said something similar. And I have great respect for both of them, for both for Jayjeet and for the RBI governor. But one of the things that we need to understand is, there is this Gartner hype cycle. Like every technology goes through something called as a hype cycle. So initially, there's a lot of hype that's created around a technology because you need to attract capital to do a technology. For example, we had the internet boom of the 1990s, late 90s. It attracted a lot of capital to the e-commerce and the internet websites, around between 1998 and 2002. And there was a dot-com bust as well right after it. And today, if you see, I mean, our entire lives are run on the internet. So this is called a hype cycle, where every technology goes through a cycle. It has to be hyped because once it's hyped, it attracts capital. Once capital is there, then you attract human capital, then you build innovation. By the time it becomes productive, it takes about 10 to 15 years. And that's what we are seeing right now with crypto. So this is the initial cycle where there's a lot of hype, which attracted trillions of dollars in the industry. Some of the most brilliant minds in the world now work for this industry. Some of the biggest venture capital funds like A16Z, Sequoia, they were all raising billions of dollars to invest into something called as Web3. So we are now in the age of Web2. Web 1 was about read. In the 1990s, you could only read internet web pages. You could not interact with it. In the late 2000s, you could basically interact with a web page. You can write comments, you could write feedbacks, you could post video, you could post content, you could interact with the internet. The Web3 is about the democratization of value. So you could basically own part of this thing that you're creating. So for example, somebody is building a decentralized Twitter. Somebody is building a decentralized Reddit, where anybody who posts a comment on Reddit gets paid for it. And so there's phenomenal value that is being created. So the bigger picture is Web3. And I think India is going to be a superpower in Web3, which is why I think we need to be careful about regulations, because without the token, there is no blockchain. It's called as a private blockchain, and you can just use a database for it. I mean, there's no reason for you to use a private blockchain. Use case is far and few. And this is why I think it's very important for us to have a very nuanced approach. India has been known to take the middle path. The reason why we are still successful in the world is we are the masters of doing the middle path. We're friends with Russia, but we're also friends with the United States. And so this is the genius of our ancestors, and we need to follow that path.
I'm going to take a break and come back and go back to Jayjeet for this, but after a quick break. Hello and welcome back to a roundtable where we're discussing the future of crypto. Jayjeet, are we just taking the middle path and just being cautious? But this is something that is bound to happen. We reacted to the computer age the same way, to the internet. So crypto is just an idea waiting for its time to come.
In India. Again, quoting Karthik, and he's been a pioneer in this field. It's evolving, right? So the question is, in its current stage of evolution, is it appropriate for India? That's the question. And the point is that it doesn't seem to be, right? If you look at the use cases domestically, there doesn't seem to be use case. If you look at transporter, as Devika very rightly pointed out, it does make a lot of sense in a transporter perspective. But then all the issues come in transporter, which is, I don't know who's sending it. Is it being sent for terror financing? Is it being sent for money laundering? So in the fiat currencies, in order to stop funding of terror and fund of terrorist activities and terror, which is called CFT, or in terms of AML, which is anti-money laundering regulations, there have been certain checks and balances put into place. One of the checks and balances, for example, is a 6-point KYC that is put in whenever you're getting money in or you're sending money out. There are other checks and balances that are put into place. It is these checks and balances which makes it very difficult to transfer money. Otherwise, there's no reason why I can't wire money from New York to Delhi and it should reach instantaneously. The reason why it takes a day or two to reach and hit my bank account, and then I have to approve it and then submit the invoice against which that money is coming in, is because there are people who are physically checking why the transaction is happening, checks the 6-point KYC, matches it with previous history, and so on and so forth. That is a delay that happens. Now, if you remove all of that from fiat currency, it'll be as smooth as a UPI payment. In fact, now that UPI is going across borders, it's going to be very simple to go to Dubai and make a payment. In fact, my own company, Cardsai, helped in the integration of NPCI of India, which is the owner of UPI and the payments system that we have with the nets of Singapore, which is the equivalent of NPCI and UPI in Singapore. We did the integration. Now, post this integration, it'll be very simple to transfer money instantaneously from India to Singapore and the other way around, or come down to Singapore and use your Indian cards and swipe and make a payment. Now, that happens on a fiat currency. The reason why any currency becomes difficult to deal with is when you put these other layers on top of it. Now, as Karthik was mentioning, in order to fix the cryptocurrencies, we need to put in the anti-money laundering aspects of it, the CFT aspects of it. Once you load it with these aspects, it'll become as cumbersome as any other currency. And that's the problem.
The main problem, yeah, as Jayajit said also, but Devika, one question that I want to ask you is, currently you talked about remittances. Are Indians accepting remittances in crypto, or is there still a lot of hesitation? And of course, the fact that, we still have to get our legislation in order.
Yeah, I think, my understanding of this is actually that remittances still is one of the key main use cases, at least in India, for crypto, beyond people who are trying to, make money, whether rightly or wrongly, in the crypto market. So, there are projects and, some of these projects might have a lot of regulation around them. So, example that comes to mind is Ripple. So Ripple has its own issues with the US government and SEC, and actually around, making sure it's not a security and making sure it's safe, etc. But I think they said that they are doing something around, I'll have to check this number, but around $1 billion or something plus of remittances every day around the world. A lot of that is in Asia. So, I think remittances does for now stay one of the main use cases that I find quite compelling for something like India. But, one thing I will say is, Jajit again brings up a good example and a good point about money laundering. I think the way that government like the US is doing this, and I think that's also where the Indian government is heading with regulation, is making sure, or at least trying to enforce a system where only licensed exchanges are allowed in India. So in the US, for example, people might get a VPN and use an unlicensed exchange and do things that are a little shady if they want. And there's always kind of a way around it. But for the most part, you're only allowed to use a licensed exchange. To use a licensed exchange, you have to have done KYC and KYC2. So, regardless of the fact that crypto might be anonymous, only tokens or only projects that have very strict, KYC rules, that a platform that has a strict KYC rule allows users to transact. So if I'm trying to send money to somebody from my, licensed exchange, I have done KYC too, and the US government knows exactly who I'm sending money to, where I'm sending the money to, and that does help deal with some of that issue around like transparency and oversight from the government without creating that kind of clunky infrastructure that takes a day.
So last round for everybody is Karthik, future of crypto. Are you positive, or would you say wait and watch?
Well, extremely positive, Priya. I mean, there are remarkable technologies like Cardano and others that are, providing next generation infrastructure.
A little louder.
I'm extremely optimistic, Priya. I mean, the next generation of technologies, which is called as third and fourth generation blockchain technology, such as Cardano coming out. There is this, I call it the Internet of Value, where, instead of large companies like Facebook and Amazon and Google sitting in Silicon Valley and taking all the money out, billions of people, will be creating content and will earning money out of this. The most important conversation for me is India and the Indian human capital. And I think that's why I think we have to take a very nuanced approach towards regulations, because it's really not about the technology. It's about human capital. And if we lose our human capital, if we lose the best of our gene pool because we don't regulate this properly, then there's no coming back. And most of my classmates, people I went to college with, they're all in the US and other parts of the world. Because of the opportunities that they've created. So we need to be very nuanced in creating opportunities so that people don't leave and we attract better human capital to come to our country. And so this is a bigger conversation. It's beyond money laundering, it's beyond any of that stuff. So it's taking that middle path, and we need to find that middle path, and we need to learn to walk in it. And that's my take about this.
Your last words on the future of crypto?
Was that to me, David?
Yeah, first to you, then to Devika.
Sure. So, Priya, the point is that in the current form that cryptos is, I think there are challenges. Obviously, folks like Karthik sees the next generation, so he's quite optimistic. But in the current form, if it's evolution, you can see it's been banned by China. India is going down a path where it is not very happy with the way crypto is coming up. And so it will have to evolve and evolve quickly. In some of the things that Karthik and perhaps Devika was also mentioning is about the human resource. And that's a very, very important point. Because if you look at what is being powered by crypto, there are large gaming industries being powered by crypto, which are multi-billion-dollar, and we don't want to lose a piece of it. And therefore, how do we manage the tightrope, the middle path that, again, Karthik was mentioning? One of the things that I have been saying again and again is that we should have an SEZ within India, perhaps the gift city, where we allow such transactions to happen, such skills to develop, so that we have the skills within the country and we're able to service these large industries for the time when crypto actually becomes much more mature to be used in a large number of transactions under the normal work life. So as of now, there is a challenge, but I think we need to come out with mechanisms so that we do not stifle the growth within India in terms of the skills, and in parallel, we help in the evolution of crypto.
Your last thoughts, and also, is apart from legislation, there is also a mindset. If we can't see it, then we feel that, even digital currency to an extent, one feels that there is a physical money in the bank backing it. Crypto is just all there in the virtual world. Someone like me, for instance, how are you going to convince me to invest in crypto?
Yeah, I think there's two parts of trying to, think about investing in crypto. First, I would never ask you to invest in crypto if you don't feel comfortable investing in crypto. But, I think there's two ways to do that. One is, for example, if you want to invest in crypto in a more safe way, there's definitely tokens that are backed by actual assets. So whether that's the US dollar, the euro, the British pound, or even by gold, for example. So if you want to track the growth of those markets, but perhaps you don't have access to those markets because you're sitting in India, I think that's a pretty safe way to invest in an equity market that exists outside of your current Indian purview. The other one is, I would say, only think about investing in things that you feel comfortable losing. And I only say that because that's what I would say to someone for the equity market, right? They're all kind of volatile markets. Crypto's even more so because it's at an earlier stage, but we are seeing that it's getting a little bit more now correlated to the regular equity market. So, I would say, think about how you would think about investing in the equity market and maybe operate similarly. And, I would say it's a mindset shift. Just because it doesn't exist in your bank doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And, maybe if it is in your bank, does it even mean it still exists? We've seen with demonetization, you had money in your bank, but it didn't necessarily mean that much, within, 24 hours. So, I would say
legislation. So that's the other thing we need to back it.
Exactly. Legislation, right? And I would say in terms of, last thoughts about crypto, I would say, I think everybody here made some great points. I think, it is important to wait and watch. For a country like India, we do have a huge population and we don't want them to lose a lot of money in risky schemes. But I do think it's important for the country to show that we are kind of at the forefront of technology, right? India is known to be kind of at the bastion of technology, have the smartest people in the country, have the tech people and the engineers. And we want to show that we're being forward looking. I do think India is doing quite a good job of this so far versus China, which did just ban it outright. But I think it's really about being proactive as a country, letting people learn the skill sets, as Jayajit said, and also showing that we're open to changing our mind about the technology as it progresses.
And you made a very fine case, not just for crypto, but for India too. So thank you, all three of you, Karthik, Jayajit, and Devika, for this conversation. And we hope we've answered some of your fears regarding cryptocurrency. I'm halfway there, not fully convinced. I'm going to call you all back for another show. Until now, Jayajit gets an edge, but that's it for now. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.